But remember I said the immune system and the nervous system are two of the most sensitive to toxicity. And they go hand in hand. There's a lot of communication between the two systems, right? Well, this is I put this in, some way I could have left it out because of time, but I like this because this will give you a sense of what happens. You give birth, right? So before you give birth, you're pregnant, right? So I'm talking to the women here, not the men, right? And what's happening when you're pregnant? What does your immune system see? You're basically growing a tumor in your belly. And your immune system wants to get that out, really. So what happens? The immune system has to skew itself away from the Th1 to Th2, which is more tolerant in that way. It's an antibody-mediated immunity, not cell-mediated, because the Th1, again, the bottom line we have to realize is that, in essence, half of it's you, but half of it's your husband, and you know you're probably a lot different than your husband. And whether you get along with your spouse or whether you don't, it still sees it immunologically as different and wants to reject it. So the immune system goes through this thing where it's Th2 skewed. But when that neonate is born, it has a reduced Th1 because that's what it was in. It was in the skewing. So it has to get balanced again. It has to develop the other side of it, the cell-mediated. The cell-mediated is what fights viruses. And a child, you know, is more susceptible at the beginning. So you want to develop this Th1. And you do that by basically exposing it to the good microbes. But what happens, especially I've seen in autistic children, but I think really it looks like, as far as I can see in Asian culture, is it looks to me like in America we have way too many cesarean sections. I think you have even more here. It seems like there's a huge cesarean section rate. And what happens when you get a C-section? The baby doesn't go through the birth canal. And in the birth canal are the mother's good, hopefully good bacteria, may not be so good, and we're promoting that the mothers have, hopefully take good bacteria so that they have a good bacterial flora in there, so the child gets that. So the baby gets delivered by C-section, doesn't get the benefit of the good mother's bacterial flora, and gets exposed to flora from the hospital. The last place you wanted to get exposed to bacterial flora. So right away there's an imbalance. And the immune system is not getting educated the way it should. And that is one of the problems. And so Tregs are very important here. And what's important in Tregs? Vitamin D, probiotics. So the good intestinal bacteria and vitamin D, a very important part of this process. And so because of this skewing, we're seeing an increased incidence of asthma, atopy, which is allergies, eczema, right? And the contributing environmental factors to this increase are multifactorial. They include various toxins, infectious agents, and airborne pollutants, are all skewing the immune system, taking us away from getting back to that balance. So part of what we want to do is we want to promote the Tregs to get that balance early on, very early on. And things that skew it more are mercury, methylmercury, like in fish, okay, skew Th2. Lead skews Th2, so all these heavy metals skew it. Vaccines. Vaccines, now this is again not anti-vaccine, but what do vaccines do? They increase your antibodies to what, if you get vaccine to pertussis, you increase the antibodies. Or hepatitis B. That's by itself, it's not cell-mediated, it's Th2 skewed. So giving vaccines so early may promote this skewing. So there's some studies that say maybe if we delay, there was a study, I don't know if I have it in here, there was a study of delaying the pertussis vaccination, the DPT, by 2 months. And if you delayed every one of the pertussis for the first few years by 2 months, by the age of 7, you decrease the incidence of asthma between 50 and 60%, just by delaying it. And we give a hepatitis B so early, first day of life. To me, the immune system is not supposed to see a vaccine the first day of life. It really shouldn't. It needs to be educated to have a balance. The only time I think you should have a hepatitis B is if you're a mother who's positive of hepatitis B. Then the child should get a hepatitis B vaccine. That makes sense. But not every child. Certainly not with thimerosal. And thimerosal, that preservative, also induces Th2. So I'm just saying is skewed. BPA, the plasticizers, induce Th2 and decrease Tregs. Exactly what you don't want to do to a neonate and an infant. So you don't want to give plastic bottles with BPA, you want to make sure they don't have BPA. You want to get glass, and you don't want to heat them up when you're trying to sterilize the milk because then you're going to have more leakage. You get the picture. I'm driving it home. Okay? Again, what you want is this. Oh, this is the delay in. That was the study I talked about, reducing the risk of asthma by pushing the DPT. Again, this is not an anti-vaccination policy. This is just saying maybe if we delayed a couple of months, it's a safer. I mean, this was a, you know, again, Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology 2008, very, very respected journal. This is not just some, you know, like it was portrayed sometimes as anti-vaccination mothers. This is about safe vaccination policy, not about being anti-vaccination. Okay. And then lastly, then asthma, just again, it's that same thing, reactive oxygen species, or oxidative stress, pollutants, and polymorphisms, the same genetic predisposition in glutathione places as well, predisposed to asthma. And there are lots of triggers for asthma, and all kinds of indoor dust mites, cockroaches, funguses, molds, tobacco smoke. Got to think of chronic sinusitis. Reflux can contribute to asthma. Infections, aspirin, if you're sensitive. But what's not in the article a lot of times is food allergies. And a lot of kids with asthma, if you find out what they're sensitive to, especially a lot of times milk, wheat, you can help asthma. So we try to figure out what they're sensitive to. Okay, and lastly, before we get into treatment here again, just that model, the underlying features of chronic illness, oxidative stress, inflammation, the need for detoxification because of the toxicity, and glutathione being a key player in this whole process. Okay, so that's it. So now I'm going to, it's actually good timing actually, I'm going to finish that part of the lecture. And now we're going to go to the, oops, okay. Now we're going to go to the treatment part. So we have about, what, 45 minutes an hour? I mean, I mean, I can do this in a half an hour, then we can take questions, okay? So, all right? Okay. Is that perfect? Right? He just gave me something that said, end for 30 minutes of questions, so that was good. If I would have said 5 o'clock, what would you have done? Right. So what is the integrative or functional medicine approach to chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, which again is what underlies the 4 A's, right? Autism, ADHD, asthma, and allergies. We want to deal with the potential underlying contributing factors, okay? It's not enough to just name it. We want to say, okay, what's going on behind the scenes? Infections, toxins, allergens, gut issues, abnormal flora, dysbiosis, leaky gut, it's too permeable, lets things in that shouldn't get in. Environmental allergies and sensitivities, food allergies and sensitivities, nutritional deficiencies and imbalances, minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, hormonal imbalances. Talked to you about thyroid, we'll talk about oxytocin, and immunological imbalance. I spent a lot of time on that. So what are some of the treatments, okay? First, a couple of caveats. Again, the next few slides are from my friend and colleague, Sid Baker. I love it. The problem that happens with you as parents is you go on the internet. Now, the internet is a great thing. But you go on the internet, you go on a blog, and this one person told you that I did 40 milligrams of X and my kid recovered in 2 weeks. And every one of you goes out and says, I want to give my kid 40 milligrams of X. But 40 milligrams of X may not only not recover your kid, it may be bad for your child. And you give the 40 milligrams of X and your kid starts going, right? That's what happens. We call that whale watching. It's like, if any of you ever been to America, to like Cape Cod or something, where you go look at the whale watchers. Somebody's on the boat and says, hey, there's a whale over there. And everybody runs to that side of the boat. The boat almost tips. It's like this. And they, no, the whale's over there. They all run to the back on the other side. This is what happens with autism treatments. Everybody's running to the next, quote, treatment that's going to help their kid. And the problem is you want to do this in concert with a doctor or practitioner who knows how to discern what's best for your child. Okay, that's one thing, all right? Next thing, or this was the example of secretin, which secretin, although has not been proved in double-blind placebo-controlled studies, I think it's because you need to subgroup the kids. They just came out, I don't know if they know, they just came out with a study in the state. I haven't read it yet, I've been away, but I saw some of the things. They just came out with a study from my alma mater, University of Rochester, that gluten-free, casein-free diet in a double-blind placebo-controlled study, not just with this, but this is in a lot of things. It didn't work for your kid. I know it didn't work for your kid because the literature says it doesn't work for your kid. So it was all placebo. It was all in your mind. Now, you're going to believe that? Did you see it work for your children? I'm not looking at one person, but I'm saying, the people that raised their hand, right? What I'm told is in the study, and I haven't seen it yet, is there are some outliers. That when you don't subgroup and you put all the kids together, it may have helped the kids with GI problems. That may have been the subgroup that really it helps. But if you don't subgroup, it dilutes out all the data, and you get no statistical significant difference. However, I heard there were many outliers where some kids did unbelievable. So you're going to discount those kids and say it doesn't work? No, you got to say it may work for a subgroup, or it may work for certain kids. The same thing for secretin. Secretin, in my experience, secretin helped a number of kids. But the studies didn't show it to be effective, so we stopped giving it mostly. But there are some kids with constipation and diarrhea that secretin really does help. So these are what we have to figure out. We have to subgroup, and then we have to do our research after we've subgrouped. And that's what's going to be necessary, because this is another example where there's going to be a big push to say it doesn't work in America, and you probably hear it here too. And there'll be more of a backlash, and it's a shame, because a lot of parents who are going to do it say, oh, I'm glad I don't have to do that now. It doesn't work, because it's a hassle, and their kid will not get the benefit of the trial. It's a shame. That's what. Okay. Secondly, before I get to specifics, this is I love my friend and colleague Sid Baker is the king of metaphors. This is tax law. If you're sitting on a tack, it takes a lot of Risperdal to make it feel good. Risperdal is the medicine that calms kids' aggressive behaviors, right? The appropriate treatment for tack sitting is tack removal. Think about it. You got a tack in your butt and you pull it out, right? Second tax law. If you're sitting on two tacks, removing one does not produce a 50% improvement. Chronic illness is or becomes multifactorial, and it's individualized. And if you're sitting on two tacks, you got to take both tacks out, not just one. Okay? I love this. This is classic. All right? So here's the healing program that I put forth in the book, Healing the New Childhood Epidemics, for Autism in the 4 A's. Reduce environmental exposures is 5-pronged. Reduce environmental exposures, dietary modifications, nutritional supplementation, detoxification, and medications. We got 25 minutes to kind of run through it. I needed to set the stage for you to understand, and the treatments now will make more sense to you. Hopefully now you understand what's underlying and where they're coming from. And also the reality is, in an introductory lecture, I can't get into every treatment, obviously, in total depth. You can go to the book. It will help you. It's written in plain English. I mean, I think most all of you probably obviously speak and understand English, or you wouldn't be here listening to me unless you had a translator with you. It's written with Cameron Stout, who's this fantastic writer. He's written 4 bestsellers before mine, and he's a drama queen, so there's lots of stories. There are really lots of fun stories about the kids. But we made sure it's not all about, oh, my kid has autism, my kid has asthma, goes to see Dr. Bock, gets better. It's not like that. There's a lot of different stories that help make it more interesting, and then the second half of the book is all about this program. So you're going to take this in, you want specifics. There are other books out there, McCann